work out that way. We'll soon find out. Yeah, please.
In 2020, when you were talking about unrest in American cities, you said, quote, "We have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor." What changed now? Why is this situation different to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, the biggest change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor. So I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. You had a disaster happening. And they now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way.
Donald Trump is just getting played right now by Governor Gavin Newsom. He is so stupid, and he is showing it to all of us. Because in this moment of weakness, Donald Trump's back up against the wall. He is flailing and puffing himself up, trying to appear strong. But it is only making him fall that much harder. And because of that, Donald Trump is attacking Gavin Newsom, not just with arrest threats, but with an insane post that got even worse after Gavin Newsom responded with some breaking news. We're going to get into this very important story, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in supporting the work that we are doing here now. Before we can get into all of what is happening, we have to start with a press conference happening right now that Donald Trump started by attacking Gavin Newsom in...
We've had some exciting days in the last week, I would say, mostly good. Some of the things you're reading about in Los Angeles, thank goodness we sent out some wonderful National Guard. They've really helped, and a lot of problems they were having out there. They were afraid to do anything, and we sent out the troops, and they've done a fantastic job. So I want to thank them very much.
Donald Trump has absolutely no idea what he is talking about. Again, his back is up against the wall because he knows his bill is on thin ice. His boyfriend and Elon Musk has turned on him, and even his own MAGA supporters are starting to turn on Donald Trump, the head of Latinas. For Trump said, this deportation plan is not what they voted for, which spare me the tears. It is what you voted for. And now you are finding out, not that I want you to. That's why we wanted to elect Kamala Harris, who, by the way, was criticized for saying Donald Trump would sick the military on civilians. But guess who was right all along? What a shock. Not to some of us, though. But what is important right now is how we respond. It is how we respond. And Gavin Newsom is responding in a way that's clearly infuriating Trump. He announced that he is suing his administration in this post. Right here, Newsom wrote, "We are suing Donald Trump. This is a manufactured crisis. He is creating fear and terror to take over a state militia and violate the U.S. Constitution." The illegal order he signed could allow him to send the military into any state he wishes. Every governor, red or blue, should reject this outrageous outreach. There's a lot of hyperbole out there. This isn't that. This is an unmistakable step towards authoritarianism that threatens the foundation of our republic, and we cannot let it stand. This is the energy that we need right now. Gavin Newsom is hitting back against Donald Trump. I am so glad to see it. Especially because it drives Trump absolutely crazy. He is losing his mind. And we saw that during the press conference that he just had, in which he is now threatening directly to arrest Gavin Newsom. We're going to check it out. And then we're going to take a look at the insane post I talked about at the beginning of this video, which only got worse for Trump after what Newsom just went public with.
Gavin Newsom he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
After Trump made that shocking threat against Gavin, Newsom tweeted out in response saying, The President of the United States just called for the arrest of a sitting governor. This is a day I hoped I would never see in America. I don't care if you are a Republican or a Democrat. This is a line we cannot cross as a nation. This is an unmistakable step towards authoritarianism. I am glad that Gavin Newsom continues to hit. At this point, these are steps towards authoritarianism that Donald Trump is trying to take. That was the whole inception for sending ICE in, sending the National Guard in, calling in Marines in the first place. Donald Trump wants to create unrest. That is what LAPD said, that Donald Trump is trying to create a stir. Donald Trump is trying to blow this out of proportions. Donald Trump is trying to instigate when the protests were peaceful and they were righteous because they were standing up to an invasion of their community. And that is what Gavin Newsom continues to say, that Donald Trump is attacking our fundamental freedoms, and it is why Donald Trump is losing it so badly. And it's the reason for his latest post, which immediately blew up in his face. After what Gavin posted next, we're going to take a look at both of these posts Trump wrote, "If they spit, we will hit." This is a statement from the President of the United States concerning the catastrophic Gavin Newsom-inspired riots going on in Los Angeles. The insurrectionists have a tendency to spit in the face of the National Guardsmen. Women and others, these patriots, are told to accept this. It's just the way life runs, but not in the Trump administration. If they spit, we hit. And I promise you, they will be hit harder than they have ever been hit before. Such disrespect will not be tolerated. Well, Gavin Newsom responded to that insane post, pointing out the disrespect of Trump, writing, "This is how Donald Trump treats his troops." Disgraceful, the troops, whose makeshift quarters are shown in these photographs exclusively obtained by the Chronicle, arrived without federal funding for food, water, fuel, equipment, or lodging, said the source who is granted confidentiality under Chronicle policies. This person said state officials in the California National Guard were not to blame. This is what happens when the president and Pete Hegseth demand the National Guard state assets deploy immediately with no plan in place and no federal funding available for food, water, fuel, and lodging. The source said, "This is really the failure of the federal government. If you're going to federalize troops, then take care of them." Donald Trump doesn't even care about the troops that he sent in. These are not people that Donald Trump holds in high regard. This is a man who has always looked down upon men and women who have served this country. Donald Trump had no plan. He just wanted to create unrest. He just wanted to create problems. He just wanted to create a spectacle. And he continued to do so in this wild press conference, losing his mind. Just take a look at his rant about water.
Work out that way. We'll soon find out. Yeah, please.
When you were talking about unrest in American cities, you said, quote, "We have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor." What changed now? Why is this situation different to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, the biggest change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor. So I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. You had a disaster happening, and they now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way, and he said, "Wow, we're lucky we did this because they were overwhelmed. You saw what was happening." So we did the right thing. Everybody agrees to that. But you have a governor who let the city burn down, didn't want water to be sent down to him. I sent billions of gallons of water. I wanted to do it in the first term. He wouldn't do it over, I don't know, they have environmental reasons, but there were no environmental reasons. I think it's just a political philosophy. But it's lucky for the people in Los Angeles and in California that we did what we did. We got it just in time. It's still simmering a little bit, but not very much. Yeah, please.
Have you gotten...
Trump is clearly out of his mind. He has no idea what he's saying. It is just these strange ramblings that go to show how disturbed our president is and why it is so important that we actually, in this moment, as Republicans, always talk about fight for state rights, because Donald Trump wants to control the entire country with his broken brain, and we just can't let him. Especially as he lets his mass thugs attack peaceful protesters without any accountability. As Jamie Raskin called out in this video right here.
A political prisoner is someone like Alexei Navalny or Nelson Mandela, who's been imprisoned for ideological reasons, not for violently assaulting the police or engaging in seditious conspiracy or destroying federal property. But the administration's effort to create big news yesterday was Trump's acting U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, a blatantly partisan prosecutor who has bragged about working to turn New Jersey red. Well, she announced her intention to indict our colleague, Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, on charges of assaulting, resisting, and obstructing law enforcement based on the now famous May 9th incident outside of Delaney Hall, an ICE detention facility in McIver's district, where she was conducting a scheduled oversight visit with other members of Congress, including our 80-year-old colleague, Bonnie Watson Coleman, and the mayor of Newark. Well, Delaney Hall is operated by the private prison company GEO, a major Republican donor that gave $1 million to Make America Great Again, Inc., and has faced numerous lawsuits for its treatment of detainees and unsafe conditions. The members had a lawful right to be there and to investigate, and even after ICE initiated a scuffle to arrest the mayor of Newark on public property, the House members were let in to tour the facility to conduct nonviolent oversight, and the tour went smoothly. This indictment is a manifest fraud, clearly designed to distract America this week from the administration's savage and unpopular effort to strip 14 million Americans of their Medicaid and health coverage and 11 million Americans of Head Start, Meals on Wheels, and other nutritional assistance programs like SNAP. Representative McIver was, of course, executing one of the core duties of a member of Congress, oversight, pursuant to her precise statutory right to enter and visit an ICE facility. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held that oversight is a central element of the legislative process, because if we can't research the facts on the ground, we don't know what laws to pass. This, for the Department of Justice to charge McIver with assault, is an outrage against the Constitution, which protects members of Congress from civil and criminal prosecution for performance of their core legislative duties. It is also a scandal in light of the DOJ's constant backing of cop-beating insurrectionists, including with the shocking policy that these pardons can even apply to criminal charges wholly unrelated to the events of January 6th. As well as the DOJ's jaw-dropping decision to fire more than a dozen senior criminal prosecutors simply because they had worked on the January 6th case. Yet now we've got colleagues who celebrate January 6th insurrectionists actually calling for prosecution of members of the House for doing their jobs. Representative Buddy Carter called our colleagues rioters. Representative Bishop actually said this was an insurrection. I didn't know that was in his vocabulary, but this was an insurrection, and he said it was a debacle worse than 9/11. No police officers or ICE agents were injured at Delaney Hall. No one died. No one had a heart attack like Officer Fanone did. There were no strokes. There were no broken jaws, no broken necks. Nobody was forced out of police work like Sergeant Gonell was. Yet we've got members of Congress who would gladly jettison the speech and debate clause, which protects all of us in our work, the First Amendment, and the Article I powers of Congress to score a few cheap political points at the expense of their own colleagues. In Trump world, violent insurrectionists and cop-beating extremists are heroes. They're martyrs. They're patriots. Members of Congress performing oversight functions are criminals and insurrectionists. And veteran criminal prosecutors of January 6 felons are fired, so Donald Trump can continue to pander to his private militia of pardoned rioters and insurrectionists, and a reserve army of extremists who've proven themselves willing to stand back and stand by.
We have to continue to fight back, and we have to continue to talk about the distraction that Donald Trump is trying to create. We are going to be doing so on this show, and I think independent media is more important than ever right now. So if you want to support what we're doing, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments, and until next time, I'll see you soon.